interesting. Certainly, you can certainly find that out. About 2 years ago, I was in London running a workshop for people doing a master's in linguistics and teaching English. And among the audience, not the audience, the participants, there was a young woman called Agne Kocnevaite. Agne Kocnevaite comes from Lithuania. Do you know where Lithuania is?
Yes.
Yeah, so Northern Europe. And as I always do, I said, has anybody got a story that they can tell me after the workshop? And Agne came and talked to me. And she told me about a story that's very important to Lithuanian people. They consider it to be almost like their national story, their founding story. And it was a long story, so she didn't tell me there and then, but we kept in contact on social media, and she told me the story over the internet, which is quite unusual for me. I usually learn stories face to face, but she told me the story via social media. And it's a beautiful story, I hope you'll agree. So this will give you some understanding about Lithuanian culture. Are you ready? Story.
Tell us a story.
Three sisters went down to the lake to bathe. They splashed in the water. And when the three sisters came out of the lake, they put on their dresses. But the youngest sister saw that in her dress there was something moving. There was a snake in the sleeve of her dress. The youngest sister's name was Egle. Egle, be my bride. Then from your sleeve I will gladly slide. I cannot marry a snake, said Egle. Go away, leave me. She called for her sisters, and her sisters came. But again, the snake in the sleeve of her dress spoke. Egle, be my bride, and from your sleeve I will gladly slide. The eldest sister stood on where the snake was, but the snake was too fast and escaped into the other sleeve, and said again, Egle, be my bride, and from your sleeve I will gladly slide. I will marry you, said Egle, just let me put on my dress. And the snake went from the dress and into the trees. Egle, she returned with her sisters to the farm where she lived with her mother and her father and her 12 brothers. She didn't tell them what she had promised. But the next day, from the forest came many snakes. A whole team of snakes slithered from the forest into the farm, and they were pulling behind them a carriage of carved wood. One of the snakes spoke to her father, the farmer. Gilvanus, king of the snakes, comes and asks for his bride. His bride, said the farmer. Who? Your daughter, Egle. Egle, come to me. Is it true, Egle, that you have promised to marry Gilvanus, king of the snakes? It is true, father. Well, Egle's father did not want his daughter to leave, to marry a snake. So he went to the wise woman of the village. Ah, said the wise woman, instead of your daughter, put a white goose in the carriage. So her father went home to the farmyard and he found the whitest goose that he had. And he dressed the goose in a white dress, and he put a band of wild white flowers on the goose's head. And he lifted the goose into the wooden carriage, and the snakes pulled the carriage away and between the trees. But there in the forest lived a cuckoo bird, you know? And when they got to the cuckoo bird, the cuckoo sang, "Cuckoo, cuckoo, brigavo use, he tricked and lied. Here's a goose and not a bride, cuckoo, cuckoo." Well, the snakes were angry to learn of this, and they returned with that carriage, and there were more snakes than before. A great wave of snakes came across the farmyard. They called for the farmer. "Your daughter Egle must come. Gilvanus is waiting for his bride. Do not trick us again, or we will bring disease to the creatures that you keep on your farm." Well, her father did not want his daughter married to a snake. So he went again to the wise woman of the village, and she listened, and she said, "Instead of your daughter, put a white sheep in the carriage." Well, her father found the whitest sheep that he had, and he dressed the sheep in a white dress. And he put a band of wild white flowers on the sheep's head, and he lifted the sheep into the wooden carriage, and the snakes pulled the carriage away. Her brothers and her sisters and Egle and her mother all watched. The snakes pulled the carriage into the forest, but then they came to the... And you know what the cuckoo said? He said, "Cuckoo, cuckoo, brigavo use, he tricked and lied. Here's a sheep and not a bride, cuckoo, cuckoo." Well, the snakes were furious. They turned and they came back to the forest, and now there were a flood of snakes entering the farmyard. You could not see the ground for snakes.
Yeah.
They seethed. And they called for the farmer. "Your daughter Egle must come. If you do not give her this time, we will lay waste to your farm. We will burn it down." What could her father do? He went to the wise woman. "Instead of your daughter, put a white cow in the carriage." Well, her father went home. He found a white cow. He dressed the cow in a white dress and put a band of wild white flowers around the cow's horns. The farmer was strong. He lifted the cow into the wooden carriage, and the carriage was pulled away by the seething mass of snakes and into the forest. "Cuckoo, cuckoo, brigavo use, he tricked and lied. Here's a cow and not a bride, cuckoo, cuckoo." Well, the snakes now were in a rage. They returned and they came swarming from every angle. There was no land to be seen but snakes. They were about to destroy the farm, and Egle said, "Father, the promise must be kept. I leave you and my mother, my 2 sisters, my 12 brothers. I will marry Gilvanus." There were tears in their eyes as she climbed into the carriage in a white dress with a band of wild white flowers in her hair. The snakes pulled the carriage away. Egle went through the forest, and the cuckoo sang, "Cuckoo, cuckoo, here's the bride. Quickly to your husband ride. Cuckoo, cuckoo." Well, on they pulled her to the shore of the sea, and there, waiting at the shore, was a tall and elegant man. He had dark eyes, fine features. "I am Gilvanus. You are my bride, Egle, and you will be queen of the snakes." And he led her down beneath the sea to the world below, a world of amber. You know amber? The resin that's turned to stone. So beautiful, it's called Lithuanian gold. And there were great chambers and caverns under the ocean, where she lived with Gilvanus, and soon she loved him. There they lived together, in peace and well. They had children. The first son was called Argulus, oak. Their second son, Uosis, ash. Their third son, Burjas, birch. And then they had a little daughter who they called Drebula, aspen. Each child with the name of a tree. And there they grew up with their mother and their father, the king of the snakes. And Egle began to forget the life that she had known in the world above. But one day her oldest son, Argulus Oak, said, "Mother, mother, here I live with my sister and my brothers. Here I live with you, my mother, and my father, the king. But what about your family, mother? Where are your brothers and sisters? Where are your mother and father?" And as he spoke, Egle remembered, and how she missed her beloved family in the world above. She began to cry. "Pity, pity me, how I'm longing to see my long-forgotten father, my long-forgotten mother, oh my mother. Pity, pity me, how I'm longing to see my long-forgotten brothers, my long-forgotten sisters, oh my sisters." And as she cried, the wise one came sliding in. "Queen Egle, why are you crying?" "Oh, wise one," said the queen, "I miss my family in the world above. What can I do?" "Ask your husband for permission." So Egle went to Gilvanus, her husband, and said, "I will take my children. I will visit and I will return." But Gilvanus was afraid. He was afraid that his beloved wife, the queen, if he let her go, would forget him and never return. "You may go," he said, "if you can spin this tuft of raw silk into gold." And he gave her the tuft of silk, and she began to spin at the spindle. She twisted and turned the spindle in her fingers. But however fast and however hard she did her spinning, the silk would not be spun. Her fingers began to bleed. She was so sad, and she sang, "Pity, pity me, how I'm longing to see my long-forgotten father, my long-forgotten mother, oh my mother. Pity, pity me, how I'm longing to see my long-forgotten brothers, my long-forgotten sisters, oh my sisters." And the wise one came sliding in. "I cannot spin this silk into gold," said the wise one. "Take the silk and cast it into the fire. Then snatch it out again, and it will be spun." So she went to the fire, and she threw in the silk and snatched it out again and put it to the spindle, and within seconds it was spun into golden silk. And she went to her husband, "Gilvanus, look." And Gilvanus was amazed. "My wife, you can take my sons and my daughter with you to the world above if you can wear out the soles of these shoes." And he put shoes onto her feet, but the shoes were made of hard iron. Well, Egle left her husband and she began to walk along the amber passageways of the palace below the sea. She began to run. She began to dance. She scraped the bottom of the shoes against the hard amber, but however much she did it, the soles were not marked. She was so sad. Pity, pity me, how I'm longing to see my long-forgotten father, my long-forgotten mother, oh my mother. This is a melody of a traditional Lithuanian folk song. You can sing it with me if you like. Pity, pity me, how I'm longing to see my long-forgotten brothers, my long-forgotten sisters, oh my sisters. And as she cried, the wise one came sliding in. Why so sad? And when she told the wise snake, the snake said, take those iron shoes, give them to the smith. The smith will put them in the fire. So she took those shoes to the smith, and the smith took them from her feet and put them into the hot fire of his furnace. And the iron shoes glowed orange and then red and then white hot. And then he picked them out with tongs and plunged them into water, and there was a great hissing steam. And he gave her the shoes and she put them on her feet, and in 3 steps the soles were worn away. Gilvanus, Gilvanus, my husband, let us now be parted. I will visit you again when I have been to see my parents and my brothers and sisters. I will take the children. You may go, my wife, but before you go, should you not bring food, as is the custom in our land? Should you not take some bread with you? Bake some bread, wife. Go to the kitchens and bake some bread, and then you may leave. So Egle, with happiness in her heart, she ran into the kitchens, but all of the tools that she needed had been removed. There was nothing in the kitchen with which she could bake. There was only an old sieve. You know what a sieve is? Full of holes. And she took the sieve and she put flour into the sieve. But when she put the flour in the sieve to bake the bread, the flour ran through the holes. She went with the sieve to the well to fetch water, but when she put the sieve in the well and lifted it, the water drained through the holes. She could not make the bread, and she began to weep. Ready for the last one? Pity, pity me, how I'm longing to see my long-forgotten father, my long-forgotten mother, oh my mother. Pity, pity me, how I'm longing to see my long-forgotten brothers, my long-forgotten sisters, oh my sisters. And the wise one came sliding in. Egle. Put yeast into the holes of the sieve, then add the flour gently. Lower it into the well and make the dough. So Egle took the yeast and she filled the holes of the sieve and gently put in the flour. And then holding the sieve with great care, she dipped it in the well water, and the water seeped through. And with her fingers, she gently kneaded it into a dough. And when the dough was made, she put it in the oven, and it rose and baked and smelt so good. And she took the bread and she said, Gilvanus, I am going now. And he could not prevent her. She called for her children, Arjulas, Uosis, Burjas, Drebula, And they all followed their mother. And Gilvanus said, I will show you the way. And he took them from the palace of golden amber up to the shore in the world above. And there he stood on the shore, and he looked at his wife, and he said, do not forget me. You must return within 9 days. When you come to this place, call for me. Say, Gilvanus, Gilvanus, come to me. If you are alive, may the sea turn to milk. But if you are dead, may the sea be blood. And he disappeared back to his palace beneath the waves. And Egle went with her sons and her daughter, and they walked through the forest and past the cuckoo. On they went and through the trees, and now as they were approaching the farm, her brothers saw her. Our sister has returned. And her 12 brothers lifted her up and carried her, and the 4 children followed behind. And her sisters ran out to greet her. There were her mother and father in the doorway, and they embraced each other, and there was love and joy. They had thought they would never see their daughter again. And they broke the bread, and the feasting began, and there was celebration and song, and stories were told of everything that had happened while they'd been away from each other. Oh, there was great celebration. But now she told her family, within 9 days I will return to Gilvanus. And her brother said, what? Go back to the snake. Here you belong with us, not there. But he is my children's father. He is my husband. I love him. I will return. But the brothers could not understand, could not accept this. One day when the feasting was going on, they said to the oldest brother, Arjuelus, come with me. We are going to feed the horses. Help us. But instead of taking him to the horses, they took him down through the trees to the shore. How will you call for your father? Well, Arjuelus oak was mighty and silent, and would not betray his father. They threatened him with sticks, but he would not open his mouth. The next night, when they were feasting, they took Uosis, Ash. They took him down to the shore. Again, they threatened him, but Ash was resilient and would not betray his father. The next night, they took Burjas, and although Burjas the birch was pliant and flexible, although he swayed, he would not break. He would not betray his father. The brothers were desperate. They took sweet Drebula, the youngest, the daughter. Drebula, Aspen, they took down to the shore. They threatened her with sticks. Tell us how you will call for your father. She was afraid. She trembled. And she wept. Gilvanus, Gilvanus, come to me. If you are alive, may the sea turn to milk. But if you are dead, may the sea be blood. And as she spoke, the waves began to rise white and milky. And they started to break on the shore. And emerging from those waves came the great snake, Gilvanus. And the brothers drew their sharp knives, and they plunged into the waves, and they cut, and they slashed, and they destroyed Gilvanus. When Gilvanus was dead, the 12 brothers returned home with Drebula. Drebula trembled but could not speak. The next day, Egle said to her mother and father, her 2 sisters and her brothers, 9 days I have stayed here. Now it is time for me to return. Come with me, my boys. My girl, come with me. Come to meet your father. The brothers said nothing. Their faces were stony. Her sisters wept. Her mother and father waved her goodbye. And on she went, and through the forest, and past the cuckoo, and onto the shore. And there the water was clear, and she called, Gilvanus, Gilvanus, come to me. If you are alive, may the sea turn to milk. But if you are dead, may the sea be blood. And as she spoke, the waves began to rise. The skies turned dark, and the clouds were black. And the storm broke. The waves rose high and crashed onto the shore, and the waves were blood. And she saw now the truth. And she knew that it was her brothers who had destroyed her own husband. Egle wept for Gilvanus, and there on the shore she looked at her sons and her daughter Drébula. We can neither go back to your father, nor can we return to my home. Here we will remain. I am Egle, the fir tree. You, Arduous, will stand and grow here as the mighty oak tree. You, Oasis, will be the ash tree, resilient. You, Burjas, will be the beautiful, pliant birch. And you, Drébula, you will remain here by the shore, and you will be light and pretty and will tremble in the slightest breeze. You will be the aspen tree. I, the fir tree, stand here among you. And those trees grew and became the trees of Lithuania. The story of Egle, Queen of the Snakes.